forget how we started. I feel like we haven't done this
It's
in a while.
fine.
Can you hear me good or well?
Um, you're on the quiet side? I can't hear you at all right now.
I clicked the mute button. I don't want to be I want to be close, but I can't be close because my head is
And
huge.
my, mine's not huge.
There, I'll zoom out a little bit.
Sure, so I'll just
Okay.
be the one with the big head. It's fine. It's fine.
My Welcome to another edition of Mom and I Unfiltered. Today we're going to talk about the importance of handwritten letters and thank you cards, especially in today's digital
I do
age.
think it's a lost art,
Uh,
completely lost art.
yeah, well, for some people. And then Elizabeth, she's getting ready to go to Raleigh. But I told her, I said, just pop in because we need to have you talk about. She writes letters every day. I think we single handedly keep the post office in business in our town.
And
Also, we make them mad because glitter leaks out of
well,
every
yeah,
envelope she sends.
that's yeah. I can see them being very careful when they see something with her return address on it.
Anyone who gets a letter from her knows to open
Yeah,
it
that's a
outside.
good idea. But again, also very
Uh,
joyful. But I'm the same way. I put something in the mail every other day. If it's not a letter, it's a card, it's a note, something.
See, COVID ruined it for me. I think I was much better up until COVID, and then like everything to me switched to digital, and I still try to do it differently. Like there's a way to stand out digitally and still be meaningful. It's
Yeah.
not the same as a handwritten letter, for sure, and I need to get better at it. And I still do it, or I try to do it when certain occasions arise, and we'll talk about that. But it's it gives a personal touch, right? It conveys thoughtfulness, effort, creates a deeper connection. And I mean, like, what do we normally get in the mailbox every day?
Junk and bills.
Yeah. So when you get a letter, like this time of year, everybody's getting Christmas cards, and I bet everybody's excited to check their
Absolutely.
mail. You get less crap. Election years, you get nothing but
Yes.
trash. It's like we're just creating more problems. Nobody reads those things.
Sorry, marketing people, but
Every
we don't we do,
No,
we don't read it.
if they hand wrote a letter, maybe I'd
Even
read it.
then, like we get some of those sometimes when they want to replace windows and it looks like it's a handwritten letter, and then you're like,
Oh, the like where it's like a printed, like somebody maybe wrote
yes,
it once and then they
yes,
copied it and then printed it, so it
yes.
looks like, yeah,
The other part,
yeah. But it
the
is
other part though
rare.
is too, if your writing is so terrible that you can't really read it, that's hard too.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that in a minute, like why it's not common. But like, let's wrap up why we think it's important. So the
Okay.
personal touch, it's rare today, right? We do emails, texts. You know, people aren't using uh, pen and paper as much because it takes longer. And then we've got positive emotional impacts. Standing out. How does it make you stand out?
Well, and it makes you stand out because it's something, and a perfect example of this is a few weeks ago, we got a thank you note from someone whose wedding we went to in September. It was the most beautifully handwritten note. But on top of the note, she also included pictures from her wedding that we were in. So pictures of us dancing, and on the back she wrote like, this was such a fun moment. You remember, this is the song we were dancing to. Like that to me, I kept that because that to me is, not only was it personal because she wrote the note, but then she went the extra step and put in a memory. attached to it, which I thought was so very, very cool. And again, you go back to
Yeah.
in our day, and even with you guys as kids, you couldn't use what someone gave you or spend the money they gave you until you wrote the thank you note. Like that was a thing. Because
Yeah.
again, me growing up, my mother said, if you don't write the thank you note, you'll never see another gift from that person. That was enough
Yeah.
to put the fear of God in me. Yeah, I'll write the note. They give great gifts. I want another one next year. Yeah, that's it.
Why do you think it's not common? I mean, obviously the convenience of phones, internet, etc. But you talked about decline in writing skills. Guilty, right here. My right, Patrick just surpassed my writing skills. Last night, Elizabeth goes, "He's been practicing. He's doing much better. He's surpassed you." And I mean, I have proof from this week. She was she needed a pick me up. I started handwriting her a letter. I thought she's going to think our child wrote this. I'm writing capital letters with lowercase letters in the same word and not the beginning of a sentence, like halfway through. And then I'm like, what? So I
Oh
typed her a
boy.
letter. It's still the sentiment. And I gave it to her. She was probably like, what is this? Uh, but my decline in writing skills, because I'm not doing it except for after my birthday and after Christmas, maybe. Uh,
But but
I'm
it's
not doing it
also
as much.
not taking the time. There's some old movies you go back to where they're dipping their pen in the inkwell, and their
Yeah.
writing is almost like calligraphy because it's just so beautiful because they're taking their time. We're just like, I just need to get this done. I need to get this done. I need to move on. My
Yeah.
writing's getting worse as I age because of just trying to get it done fast. I was at the grocery store the other day, couldn't read three things on my list. No idea what they were because the writing was bad. It was just too fast.
Yeah. And we know people write. I still see, I feel like I'm rare when I write a grocery list, but I still see a lot of people with grocery lists that aren't using their phone app. Like sometimes I
Yeah,
use my phone, but I feel like that's one of the only places people still use it
probably. You're probably right. Yeah, because they
to write a list for something they got to go
right.
buy
But again, like you,
that's not on
most
Amazon.
people really are. They use their phones. They use any other form of technology, but yeah. Again, I just think that writing is huge, and maybe you do need to just practice a little more. You need a
I
workbook.
think so. I need you to send me that workbook that I gave you that says circle the circle the
No,
bear
it's your turn.
and then write your own story. Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, I need to do that. I think that we're all just kind of. I feel like everything's much more fast paced,
Yeah,
right? We don't have to wait to see if our friends are home and call their landline, and like you just text, or sometimes you can. I mean, people are tracking each other, so like I know this person's not here. We want to know things way
that's
too
true.
quick now. So I think that perceived formality or perceived time commitment is probably another reason why it's not
Probably.
common.
But
But like, let's talk about why it's important. I know you or when to do it.
uh,
Let's say because
I do it. I
you
have a tendency probably to overdo the note thing. Um, it's you know generally everybody knows that after you have an interview, it's always good to follow up with those people that have interviewed you with just a little note of thanks for their time. A lot of people will send an email for that. Um, when I was hiring people, I'd never get anything, nothing. And I would think this is the most random thing because it's something that in my generation, we were taught that was part of the interview process. You apply, if you're lucky enough get the interview, your follow up with that interview is a quick thank you note and usually within the first day or two because that's when they're deciding if you were worth the time. Um, and then aside from that, it's always obviously the gift. Someone gives you a gift. But there's also just a note of, hey, I was just thinking about you. Now, a lot of us will do that in a text. I do that probably every day. I'll just text somebody a quick note, how you doing? It's not the same as getting a letter in the mail, like you said, Christmas time. Everybody loves opening because it's you don't hear from those people. Maybe once a year you actually see their handwriting, which is really cool. But I don't know. I To me, there's just something about getting something in the mail that someone took time and thought about me. Maybe it was a week ago, and literally picked up a note card, put something in it, and sent it to me. That's awesome. But like I said, I feel like it's a lost art. It's not something people do anymore. Yet we all love them. We all love getting that kind of stuff, right? Is there anybody that you've ever met that was like, oh, it's got a freaking card from this guy?
Maybe Dad when Elizabeth sends our phone check filled with glitter.
She doesn't do glitter in his card anymore. She usually writes on the back, glitter free.
Probably because Lila's taken all our glitter and distributed it through all the
Maybe,
hardwoods.
maybe. But
Yeah, I think I agree. The funny thing is, though, maybe it's not funny, but the odd thing is nowadays, and this is another topic, but I firmly believe you still get jobs because of your network and your connections. But you can go on LinkedIn or on any of these like websites that have jobs and just click
mhm,
to apply, and they try to make it so easy. But now you're just a piece of paper with a bunch of keywords that an algorithm is looking at before it sends it to a
yep,
human being who knows nothing about you. And there's no way to differentiate yourself other than using AI. So I actually find that it's interesting how many people aren't trying to send a letter to get an interview, because that to me seems like a
yeah.
no brainer. How am I going to stand out? Well, I either have to go meet this person, and there's chances that I can't do that. Can I send a letter to the corporate office if it's an office? Like that seems like a great way to go. You're probably not going to find the letter, uh, send a letter to somebody's house you don't know.
Because that's
But
creepy.
uh, yeah, but like sending a letter, like salespeople used to go and you drop off cupcakes or donuts or something to an office to try to
Yep.
get a meeting. Why is it different now that we can't go send a letter to, hey, can you send this to the hiring manager? I'm applying for a job with you all. I did this. Like that would make you stand out
Absolutely.
right away.
Absolutely. Because also, like you noted, a lot of these, if you're applying for a job, back in the day, they used to require a cover letter, require one, because in that was the opportunity for you to stand out a little bit. Most don't want that anymore because that's just another piece of paper that they have no interest in. Or, like you said, they're using a program to skim your application to see if you have, like you said, the keywords or, whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, that little letter could be all the difference in the world. Because until you get a face to
And
face,
I mean
that's all they
that
know.
Yeah, and for me, the letters are like you give three key. I mean, one, it shows that you care and that you put effort
Hmm.
into something because you had to take the time to write it, buy a stamp, find out where to send it. Half the time we don't know, and I don't keep a address book. Elizabeth keeps an address book. Half the time I got to go find out where that person lives because I forgot, or maybe she's not home and I don't have the book. Um, but like that's intention. It's a keepsake a lot of times. So it's like, hey, wow, I got this great note. Maybe you don't keep it forever, but you keep it for more than
Hmm.
a day, and it feels kind of unique. So it is very odd to me that people don't use that more to stand out.
And it's funny because going through, my parents' boxes of things, I found one box that had every note my mother had ever received. And at first I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then I realized I do the same thing. I keep every note, every card. That's a thing for me. That's just, and it's very sweet then, especially after these people are gone, to be able to see their
Yeah,
handwriting. Like to see that writing is very, very cool. Elizabeth's grandmother and I were pen pals for many, many years. Many, many years. It is as soon as we met, we formed this bond. and we would write letters back and forth to each other. You know, because you helped her with her typewriter. Sometimes she used her typewriter to type me a note, which was lovely. But usually I got this beautifully handwritten letter, and we would correspond with each other a couple times a month. Not a phone call, because she was usually busy. She was way busier than I ever would have been. But to take the time to write a letter was just really, really nice. And I still have all of them, which is really very cool. It's a neat memory.
Yeah, it is cool. I brought some props. So like here's some handwritten letters, and I wrote on the bottom. You can see the lovely handwriting here. This was either 2016 or into 2017. But this one's from our Uncle Jeff and Aunt Shirley, so Dad's brother. But they had sent us a Santa Claus that I would have long forgotten where it came from. But it's an old timey hand painted and crafted. It's kind of creepy, but it's a it's a Santa from his parents, so my
Yeah.
grandparents, and it might be even older than that. But it talks about it in here, and just kind of they put a little personal touch. You know, this was the first Christmas that they met Elizabeth when we started dating, but it was kind of cool to have this, and I keep it in the box
That's a
with the
great
Santa,
idea.
and so I can always remember, oh, this is where the Santa
Yeah.
came from, and now I've done it so many times, I'm not going
Well,
to
not that,
forget.
but
But
your children will now know. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's cool
Yeah.
for history too. Yeah, like you said, I do keep most letters I get. Not every, every birthday card's a little crazy. But like the ones you guys send or where
Yeah.
you write something personal, I keep them. I put them in a drawer over there. And at the end of every year, that drawer's full from kids, Elizabeth, you all. Um, and I take it and I put it in like a big box. And that box goes into a Tupperware that's in
Yeah.
storage upstairs, frankly. And I don't really look at that much, but sometimes you know, I might go in and look and say, wow, this is cool. Or if somebody's not here anymore, I can go look
Absolutely.
through that. And when the kids are older and they can look at it, because, you guys have letters, some that you were showing us and some that dad was showing us from 1940s,
Absolutely.
50s, even that your parents were sending each other. And it's just very cool to see, like, you feel like you know that
Absolutely.
person. Whereas if you took my typed out letter from Elizabeth 50 years from now, you're gonna be like, I don't know, like, is this really that
it's
cool? I see these
it's
letters all
funny
the
because
time.
again, going through some of my parents' stuff, my mother always wrote, and they were here every Christmas. I would fly to Rochester, get in the car, and drive them back here for a week. And she would always send me a really cool card after the fact, with a really cool note in it that of course, I saved everyone. Fast forward to when I would go up and see them, and my mom obviously had Alzheimer's, so she wasn't writing the notes. My father would take a piece of paper, and I'm not kidding, it would be like this big. And a week later, in the mail, I would get this tiny piece of paper, and it would say, and I've kept all of them. I would cook for them, put their food in the freezer for a month, and he would send me a note that would just say, "I know you don't want to hear it, but let me be grateful, Dad." Like, that would be it. But again, like you said, it tells you so much about that person because he was a man of few words when it came to that kind of stuff. Like, I appreciate it. It was just let me be grateful, Dad. But he would spend money on a stamp. That was not his MO to even spend money on a stamp. But I have all of those, and it
Yeah.
is very cool. The other thing that I notice now is people of your generation using, and I'm sure it's been done for years, using their parents or grandparents' writing to get a tattoo. So they would take something that they wrote, it could be mom, could be dad, could be whatever they wrote. They take it to a tattoo artist who then uses that exact writing to make the tattoo on them somewhere. So
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
still there. It still means something to someone to have something in someone's handwriting that maybe is no longer here. Um,
Yeah.
I would never do that because my dad's handwriting was so bad. You could barely see that it was dad. But it's still important.
I
It's
like
always
it.
still important. And again, even after the fact of like AI influencing and all that, I think sometimes you can tell when someone's written something based off of AI. It's very mechanical, as opposed to maybe not using the best verbiage or letter structure or whatever. Um, but it's from their heart, and you can tell it's from their heart.
Yeah. I think it's going to be more, it's going to just keep being more important and help you stand out even more because we're at the point now where you get something on your phone, a text, an email, a post on something. AI's built into a lot of these now. It says, do you want to reply thoughtfully, positively, questionably? Like, and it'll draft it, and most people will just click it and send it. So like the amount of actual empathy, emotion, uh, time that's going to go into, I feel like human
Yeah,
interaction that's not
yeah,
in person is going to continue to just be like shortened and easy for the click. So if you can write letters, I'm remote, so I don't go places as much anymore. But when I travel, I still carry like some thank you cards so that if I have a meeting or something afterward, I can sit down and write a thank you. Sometimes I'll pre-write some of it, and then that way I don't have to spend as much time after because maybe I have to
right.
go somewhere. I'll write out the rest and then leave it with wherever
It's
I'm
a great
at.
idea.
Those are still going to be huge ways to
Uh,
stand out. And companies, I mean, let's talk about companies. I know grandma, your mom used to send letters to companies all the time.
yeah, you did.
And I started doing that. And I mean, selfishly, it is fantastic. I'll write them feedback, like, especially if I had a really great
Yes,
experience or maybe a not so great experience. I'll write them feedback and say, hey, I really like a couple years ago, boots. I really love these boots that I had, but they wore super quick. The heels wore really fast, the tread, and you couldn't get them replaced. You had to buy a whole
right.
new pair of boots. And I wrote them like, I love these boots. They hold up really well. They're the best boots I've ever owned. They're super comfortable. I'm going to keep buying your brand, but the tread keeps wearing out. And what did they do? They sent me a new pair of boots for, I think I paid $50, but they're like $300 boots. Uh, those things, I I started writing letters all the time to companies. Sometimes you
Dear
don't get anything,
McDonald's,
which is
your
fine.
French fries are friggin' outstanding.
But yesterday, one was soggy,
Right.
and I
What can
told
we
all
do
my
about
friends.
this?
Yeah, but I mean, people use Twitter for that today, for bad experiences to get something out of it. But I just think it's fun to one convey like, hey, I appreciate
Yeah,
your product. And if I was a business owner or even at a big company and you got a letter, like they used to have people that manage that.
absolutely.
Now it probably just they're like, I don't know what to do with this. So we might just send it to somebody important. Like, here, we got a letter.
The
Um,
mailroom where Elf worked for one afternoon.
exactly. But I think that's cool. And it's fun. It's because you can like I feel like I'm connected to that brand now because I sent them a letter and I'm not. They were just like,
They
okay,
probably also thought you
somebody
were a
sent a letter.
75-year-old man because of the letter.
100%. And
Right.
my handwriting. Is he 75 or 7? We're
That's
not
true.
sure.
He's
Send
got
a
large
lollipop and a
feet, though,
sticker with it. Yeah. But I still do that. I'll still write letters
which I
for
think that's very
things.
cool.
Just, just for the sake of like letting them know. People don't let other people know how they're doing now. So from a business standpoint, one, yeah, thank yous
Right.
and interviews. But also like if you have a good experience somewhere or maybe you had a lot like not a great experience, a letter is way better than going on Twitter and telling the whole world
Absolutely.
about
And
it.
again, I mean, I think there's a place for that, but I also think that these
Yep.
companies, I don't care what it is, they don't hear the good stuff enough. They hear the negative because we are very
Yeah.
much an entitled population. Like if we don't get 100%, then we whine. Um, but I think it's really good for these companies to get the good because I think that they deserve that. Everybody deserves that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's easy to look at them and say, "Oh, it's a company," and put them in this noun, but there's
Absolutely.
people there, and those people want to try to do what's right.
Yeah.
Most of them, Not all of them are greedy and
And
selfish.
but you think about even like the
Uh,
note that you leave. I mean, Dad and I still do it. If you're at a hotel, I don't care how many days you're there. The note you leave for the cleaning people, like I always use that little tablet every day and say, "Thank you so much. Have a great day," and leave a tip with it because I want them to know that I appreciate who they are. And just leaving the note maybe is enough, but they appreciate a little bit extra too. Yeah, it's very small. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal.
it's just like the names thing, using
Yeah,
somebody's name. It helps you with your brand, which is like your
right.
legacy. When I'm gone, how do I want people to remember me? And I'll never forget growing up every year, you would write a letter to the mailman, the trash man, the recycling person. Uh, I think maybe when UPS or FedEx started coming around, but like, and you would leave them at Christmas time. You'd leave them a note and
Whatever.
cookies and a thank you for what they're doing.
Right.
Whatever. Those made huge impact. I think a couple of times they came to the house
Thank you.
to say
Yeah.
thank you, and we're like
Yeah.
visibly like this
At
is
one point,
shocking
they
to
came
me.
to the door. It was one of the years I did cookies outside, and I've got again. This is when you guys were smaller, so it was 90s, um, before COVID and anything like that. But I got a tin of cookies, and I put the note on top and put it on top of the bin. And the guy came to the door. And was like, are these for us or?" Because again, you look around, you're like, who's leaving cookies for these guys? And in my head, I thought they probably won't even eat them. Nope, they jumped in the truck, watched them tear them open. You guys were actually home that day, tear them open, and they were like, it was their mid morning snack. It was, yeah, it's again, it's not a big deal to do, but you do remember it. Like I was just talking about Elizabeth's grandmother. Um, Anytime I see a letter, I think of her because of that, because of our pen pal, having a pen pal. And a lot of people don't even have that anymore. That used to be a thing when I was a kid. You'd have a pen pal from somebody who was, on the other side of the world or in another state. But now you can communicate with your phone. So it's a little bit different. You can text and all that. But I would hope that there's still pen pals out there. I would hope. I think that'd be a cool thing. If it's not going on, we should
I think
start it
this is
up
a
again.
great, yeah, and it's a great thing to do for the aging population, people that are in homes and stuff that maybe their families don't live nearby,
Right.
or um, they've they're disabled in some manner now. Like every year at Christmas time, or usually it's at Christmas time or Thanksgiving, people are like, "Oh, I need to go volunteer, do something," because that's just when
Right.
people think about others. But the rest of the year, I think is a great, once a month, just write a letter to, I don't know, the find the old folks home near you and write a couple letters and drop them off and have them pass them around, because like those people are used to getting
Exactly.
mail, and now they get nothing except some lunch that's probably terrible. And then they sit there and watch TV all day. If they're lucky, they've got family that can stop in and talk to them, or maybe they've got activities. But a majority of those people don't have anything, and except the once a year when people decide to come
I
around. And
remember again when you guys were little before we moved here. We would do it. So we did it Christmas. We did it. I don't even know if you remember this because I know you have zero memories of a lot of things. Christmas, Valentine's Day, and Memorial Day. I would have you guys make cards and write something inside the card. I don't care if it was Merry Christmas or thank you for your service or whatever. Have a great day. Tons of them. And we would take them to this nursing home that was pretty close to us in Fairport. And the first time we did it, I remember walking in and we had stacks because, of course, Megan was like an overachiever. So for her, it was like, I might have asked her to make five and she made 50 because, what little girl didn't want to be using glitter and colored pens? They looked at me like, we only have like 20 people here. I said, well, then save them, give them to their family members. I don't care what you do. But they were tickled. I remember, and again, they sent us a note after the fact thanking us because the residents were so tickled by it. And then we'd show up again Valentine's Day, and then we'd show up again, Memorial Day. It is, like you said, it's true because they are used to seeing tangible. They are not. these are magic machines as far as they're concerned. They are not
Yeah.
tangible. They can't hold them and touch them and all of that.
Yeah. You can't pin it to your wall or
Right.
refrigerator for a couple weeks to
Yeah.
remind you.
It's a neat thing. Very cool thing. I know your
Yeah.
kids have done it too
So
because
that
I was the recipient of the propeller to the head um, when we were dropping notes off at the local nursing home there.
I'll add that picture in. Actually, that's in our
Is it
intro,
our
I think.
intro? Yeah. We went to drop off letters, and little man had his remote control airplane in the car, and I got a bit too close to it.
And your hair was lodged in there for quite some time. We sat in that parking lot for like
We
40
did.
minutes with the tiny car lights on, trying to wind the propeller the
In my
opposite
head, I thought
direction.
that the people inside were getting paperwork ready to sign me in. She must be
We,
new.
we were close. Yeah.
Here comes a new resident.
It is. There are some fun stories. So I was looking up some stories about like people handwriting letters. There's not a lot, which doesn't shock me, right? But creatively, so the interview one is one I suggested. I haven't seen anybody do that yet. But one I found online, a couple of them, real estate. So real estate's like super competitive now. We know because Megan and Brian have been trying to find a place. They finally found
And they
one.
did this.
But
They did what you're going to talk about.
yeah, so and maybe you can talk about that. But this family, this one I found was in England, I think, um, because the name of the flat was in Shepherd's Bush in Wiltshire. But they didn't have a lot of money to competitively outbid a lot of people, so they wrote a letter to the seller expressing how much they loved the house and why they wanted to move there with their family. And the woman who owned the house decided to sell it to them at a lower price than all these competitors, just because she was moved by the sincerity of which they wanted her home.
I love that.
So, you know, we're not it is there is benefit to doing
Absolutely.
that, and it does create that
So
emotional
it didn't,
connection.
when Megan and Brian did it, it did not help them at that particular time because I do think that has become in the last couple of years like a huge trend. It's not as unique as it once was. Go back 3 years, one of my employees got his house that way. They saw the house, they loved the house. It was going to have this huge yard for their dog. So they wrote a handwritten letter to the owners expressing how much they would love it and included a picture of their dog. And they were like, he's just like, if we get this house, he will be the happiest guy on the planet. They got the house. Like they literally got a call 2 days later and we're like, yeah, these people were totally enthralled with not only the letter, but the photograph of the dog. They have dogs,
Yeah,
so they understood. Same thing. Same thing. They got the house for
yeah,
a little bit cheaper than, yeah, what their going rate was. Because again, most of these houses right now, there's bidding wars. And same kind of thing. You've got to figure out a way to, if you can't
differentiate.
max out, what everybody else is paying, maybe the letter makes a difference.
Yeah, and I read another letter on okay, so there's been a trend lately, and I hope this continues. Mental health's been a challenge for a lot of folks forever, but more so with our digital age. Back in Taylor Swift's earlier years, a young girl wrote a letter talking about how she was bullied and how her music was helpful. She got a note back, along with like some gifts. The story got published, and it inspired a bunch of obviously other kids to write their own letters, but to talk about like how they're feeling. A couple years later, and I'm sure there's others that have done this, but another young woman in 2019 started what's called Letters of Hope, that were she would just write letters to people who were struggling with like mental health issues. I don't know how they figured out who they were, but she wrote more than 580
Wow.
letters in one year, just encouraging people, and like that type of trend, I think has picked up over the last few years. But just you never know. We always see what people want to show us, and you never see what they are
Right.
struggling with. And I think that's another great use for letters because it has that emotional connection. You never know how much that might help somebody.
Definitely.
So I think just if you're looking for another reason to write a letter, or if you're debating like, hey, should I write this? Thank you. Should I text the person? Maybe write the letter because it might help
Most
them on
certainly.
some
And
other
it is
journey
this,
they're on.
it's the smallest thing that you can do. It's the price of a stamp, really. It isn't,
Yeah,
um,
which aren't cheap anymore. But if you're not writing 580 letters, it's only
exactly.
what a less than $1
Exactly.
still.
But that's almost like the
Yeah,
posters, and it was post COVID, that you'd drive by someone's house and on the front lawn, and to begin with, they were handmade signs until a business got smart and decided to print them, and it just said, "You are enough. You are enough," and it was just a handwritten sign on the front of, you know, on the front of a building or on the front of a house on their yard. And again, I mean, there are so many levels to that. There are the people at concerts that hold up handwritten signs giving either thank you for doing this, or could you sing this song, or my wife and here celebrating our anniversary. Like, there's so many things that again convey very quickly a thought, but there's also that personality behind it. There is that you get to know that person
yeah,
immediately just by whatever their sign says.
yeah. And you can see the you get that personality by the quirks
Right.
and how they write. Like
Right.
my writing's mixed capital letters and lowercase letters.
Or you go, what does that say?
Yeah.
But I love I
Swing.
love the idea to the letters to people who are struggling, because everybody is. We all have that. At some moment, you have it. If you're fortunate, it doesn't last too long, or you have a way to navigate and you have the tools. But for a lot of people, just receiving a letter of hope, a letter of, you may not know me, but I'm thinking about you and you've got this. That's a big deal. Big deal.
I was looking down because on your very thorough outline that we have uh, for today, we prepped a lot. We didn't talk about greatest notes we've ever read. I don't think. Did you have one in mind? I didn't think of one, but I'm sure I can come up with
So
one
it
or one that you remember the
so
most.
in for me, they are, and you know this just because I've requested it for gifts over the years. I just want a letter. I've asked for letters from my children. Like, that's, and from my husband, and whoever wants to give me a letter, like, that's a good deal. Like
Like
that,
this?
right?
Look, is this my
I
writing or is
think
this
that's
Lila's writing?
Lila's. I'm gonna go out on
Are
a
you
limb.
sure?
Um, but those to me convey so much because they're words that usually people don't. It's almost like there's a freedom in letter writing that isn't in a regular conversation. We're afraid to express everything that maybe we're thinking for fear that someone is going to either um, push it away or not hear us properly, or something. It makes us too vulnerable. Letters to me are, it's open. It's whatever you want to, it's whatever you want to say, good, bad, or ugly. I've gotten letters from people before that have not been kind, but but I knew very quickly where they stood. Do you know what I mean? Like, they needed to write this down, they needed to express it, they needed me to read it and to understand where they were coming from. And believe it or not, I do keep those too, because I think that there is value in, they called me out on something and I needed to know it. Um, but the ones that you guys have written me over the years, the one that Dad has written me over the years, um, those mean a lot. And again, you can reflect and look back on them. But again, like the other one I was telling you earlier about, the we got a thank you note for a wedding, and she included photos. Like, that's just, it's so cool. That's just so cool. And even the ones
Yeah.
from the littles. I love those. I keep every single solitary one of them. So when I'm dead and gone, there's going to be bins all over the place.
Did Dad just get a letter,
Dad might have just got a letter. Did you hear the doorbell?
or was it an Amazon package?
Yeah. It looks like groceries. I don't know.
Oh, fun.
What'd
Oh,
you get, honey?
groceries.
Oh no, it's a delivery for me from a box of thank you letters he received.
You better get to work.
No, people thanking him just for being him.
Did they think it was the
They thought it
retirement
was the
home?
retirement home. Yes, there's a lot of there's there's a lot of glitter and stickers in a bag.
Dear Big Mike, I drew you a crossword puzzle. This should last you 2 days.
Well,
Well, at least it wasn't glitter. I keep
oh,
all
I
the
like
glittery
that.
ones. Elizabeth did. But it is fun. Her
Her
writing's
writing is
really good.
beautiful. She and Hannah have the most amazing handwriting. I try, but
All right, so we've talked about letters, why we think
yeah.
they're important, why we think they're not common, how it makes people feel special, how to stand
And
out. Any other
hopefully
thoughts?
someone listening to this will, if you haven't written a letter in a while or a thank you note, do it again. Because the other piece is it really does make you feel good when you put that in the mail and you send it off. There is something
Yeah,
um, that's a really good feeling about it because you know on the other end, someone's going to open that and be really, really happy. It goes back what my mother always used to say: treat others like you want to be treated. Who doesn't love to get, like you said, something in the mail that's not a bill, that's not an ad, that it's just something personal for you that someone thought about, not that second, but 2 days before, 3 days before, thought about you and wrote you. I love that.
yeah. Let's be the driving force and
Yes.
reinvigorating the United States Post
Not that we're
Office
getting a
and our
cut from them
mailboxes.
at all because we get nothing.
No, they're not allowed to
They're
sponsor
not allowed to
us.
sponsor us.
That would be
Yeah.
bribery.
Can't do that.
But we do need to, and a lot of people like we still get paper bills because we think we're 100. But most people don't get bills either, so they have no use for
Right.
the mail. It is literally if you order something, I will check my box for mail. Like not me, but that's how people think about
Yeah.
their mailbox. So it's always trash unless it's a box, which is I think something we
Yeah,
need to
I think so
change.
too. And I think it's a really,
Yeah,
like I said, it's a sweet thing. It's a kind thing. It is in this craziness that goes on around you every single day and it's nonstop. It's a very cool thing at the end of the day to come home, check your mailbox, and there's something in there from someone. It's like a hug. You're getting a hug. And I think that's really kind of cool. More people need hugs.
a hug at your door. That's what we'll call this
Not in a creepy
episode.
way, but yeah, hug.
If you're trying to get an
Yeah,
interview, don't
don't
do
do
that.
that. Oh God, no. No. That's why they have security. And
No,
don't send it to
no,
the interviewer's house. No, don't do that.
no, no. All right. Well, I think that's a good
Sounds
place to
good.
stop. We'll be back again next week with
Yeah,
something else to be
yeah.
determined.
Have a great day. Don't forget like and subscribe.
And write
Yeah,
us a letter
yeah, we'd love
if you
it.
know us.
Not
Yeah,
giving out my address,
we're not
but
going to tell you. We should. I was just thinking we should get a PO box.
that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, because we have so many fans that we don't
We have at
know.
least two. Me and you.
All right.
All right.
Have a
Love
great
you.
day. Love you.
Bye.
Bye. That's it for today's episode of Mom and I Unfiltered. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for another episode coming soon. I'm your co host, Patrick Riley, alongside my mom, Kathy Riley. Have a great day. All right. Just remind me if I
Okay.
am quiet.
Well, you'll know because I'll be
How
gone.
about now? Is that good? Actually, Is it louder if I talk this way? Is it louder if
No,
I
the other
talk
way.
this way?
Yeah.
This way? Interesting. So weird.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mess up my camera. Let's see. I can do this.
I feel like we
Messing it
put
up.
way too much thought into this.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong. Okay.